Good morning, Revolution, everybody, and welcome to our stream. Dom, Rosanna, Scott, hope you're having a great day. Our program this morning is on Schumer. Last week voted with the GOP. How would Lenin have voted? And of course, Lenin's a stand in for us today. We just wanted to get some eyeballs on the show. We are streaming on Twitch and on Facebook and on X. And so we hope that you'll join us. We hope that you'll like the program, and we especially would be delighted if you would share it with your friends. Help spread the word. Rosanna, I want to start with you. The other day, Trump deported 300 Venezuelans to El Salvador, and their crime tattoos. I saw one guy who was wearing a tattoo of a soccer team, and they said that he was some kind of gang member and sent him to Salvador as well. You live in L.A. There's a I think it's the biggest Mexican American population in the country, big Central American population. I imagine a lot of young people wear tattoos. What's it like there now? Are the people, are y'all living under a state of siege?
Well, I don't know. I think that because there's a lot of fight back, there's a lot of, dissemination of know your rights. It's not as bad, although there is this apprehension and there's these rumors that, ICE is going to be here and there. Just recently, there was a young student who developed an app where you can report, any kind of ICE action happening, and you get alerts and things like that. So it's a little, it's still a little concerning because you don't know when they're going to appear. You really, it does kind of have everybody in a little high alert. I would imagine not as much as in like the southern states, but nonetheless, it is concerning. And this whole idea that just because you have a tattoo, you're some kind of a criminal is not. We shouldn't stand for it, no matter who it is.
So the people are vigilant, and they're turning up the heat. And when you turn up the heat, ice melts. Isn't that's what happened?
Exactly.
Ice melts.
Exactly.
Dom,
Yeah.
but it's a sign of the times. Dom, another sign of the times. I saw the other day, Hegseth, the Secretary of Defense, removed Colin Powell from a website that featured people who were buried in Arlington National Cemetery. Now Powell was the main spokesperson for the Iraq War, you know, and he defended to the last minute almost this big lie about weapons of mass destruction. I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of people were killed in that war. You call him a war criminal, him and Bush, maybe. Um, so my question to you is, where would you bury him, and should he have been removed?
Well, where I would bury him, I don't know. I don't really care if he stays or goes, there, to be honest with you. But as far as his removal, I know it's not just him, it's been a string of removals. I know they also removed and quickly restored Jackie Robinson. And if you notice that they add this like little DEI snippet to the link where their article once was, and it's just it really just shows exactly what they're trying to do, and that the whole premise of it is just it really is just bigotry. Even figures like Colin Powell, who to a certain extent would align with them, they're removing because he's a black man, and Jackie Robinson, who is, I mean, there's I don't know anyone who could say a bad thing about Jackie Robinson, especially considering what he did for this country and for sports and for civil rights. Like, it's. I mean, they restored him, but this is obviously fueled by just racist bigotry. It's not a matter of, clearly with Colin Powell. It's not a matter of whether they align with them on policy or not, foreign policy, domestic policy. It's just it's an assault on diversity, an assault on integration and civil rights. That's clearly what they're aiming to do.
It's I'll tell you what you call it. You call it a KKK neo-Nazi. That's what those people are. That's what we're dealing with. I will say one bad thing about Jackie Robinson. No, he did red bait Paul Robeson, but he later apologized for it. So may he rest in peace, Jackie Robinson. And by the way, we played a big role in the fight to integrate baseball. The party was all up off in there, and we're trying to restore that great tradition of struggle now. Speaking of struggle, Scott, on March the 7th, Homeland Security ended its collective bargaining with 47,000 TSA workers. 47,000. In other words, they broke the union
Yep.
affiliated with the American Federation of Government Employees. On the 13th of the month, CWA and the flight attendants filed a suit to block the breaking of that union. Is that enough? If you were the head
Well,
of that union, what would you do?
uh, I mean, the only solution for any of these things is massive popular pressure, and unions are in a better spot than anybody to bring that pressure by calling members out to protest, to picket. This is an attack on the TSA workers and their union, on the American Federation of Government Employees, and on the entirety of the labor movement. This is a repetition, in a certain sense, of what Reagan did with Patco, what Scott Walker did with public sector unions in Wisconsin, um, and it's part of this strategy of shredding everything that stands in between uh, workers and the kind of direct, uh, brutal, coercive domination by capital. So I think, um, obviously, the union should be out. All unions should be out against all of this, and the people should be. It's not just about that particular union; it's about our rights more generally. And that's the thing. All these judicial decisions, Joe, you've alluded to this. Like, judges can block this or that, issue injunctions, say it's unconstitutional, but for those to have effect, the people have to do it. The Trump regime is not just going to say, oh, never mind, sorry, didn't realize it was unconstitutional, take a step back. No, we have to get out there and force them.
People have to rise up. People have to rise up. Now, when Reagan broke PATCO, and for those of you who don't know what PATCO is, it was the union organizing airline pilots. When that happened, the AFL-CIO, at the urging of a lot of unions from below, and we played a role in that as well, called Solidarity Day. And 500,000 workers marched on Washington. You know, that's the kind of thing that needs to happen. But what we're trying to do with these last series of questions is to call attention to the nature of the regime that we are dealing with. And Rosanna, in that regard, um, uh, in the case of the Venezuelans, Trump deported them without a hearing, you know, using a law from the latter part of the 18th century, the Alien Enemy Something Act. It's the same law that they use to intern the Japanese, which allows them to uh, uh, lock up, no habeas corpus, no hearing, deport anybody they want to. Um, and they planned the whole thing from beginning to end. You know, they knew exactly what they were going to do. And then they sent film crews down there to film it. And they took the film and they put it to music. And then they posted it all over the place. And then they got their talking heads and social media influencers to promote it. So they knew exactly what they were doing. And so they filed a case with a judge, federal judge. And the judge, before they left the country, blocked, said, no, you can't do that. You know, there was a stay. And they've had 3 or 4 hearings so far, but the Trump lawyer refuses to give the judge the information that he needs to have in order to assess whether or not his injunction was broken, you know? So they're refusing to tell, and it's not the first time. A couple of days before that, they deported a Lebanese doctor living here in the United States. She teaches at Brown University. She went back to Lebanon in February. Apparently, she attended, or she's accused of attending a funeral of one of the Hezbollah leaders, and they kicked her out of the country. Even before they kicked her out, a judge said no, and they just ignored it. Um, bef- Before that, brother Mahmoud Khalil, uh, 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, knocked on the door, arrested him, got him in a holding cell in Louisiana. On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being normal and 10 being a dictatorship, given how Trump and them are acting outside of the law, how close are we to a dictatorship?
I think we're about 11. I think,
11.
I think, they're testing the waters, in my opinion, to see how people are going to react to some of these actions. And I think that we have to also show our reaction, and we have to be the enforcers of really this judicial decisions, and we have to not allow ourselves to be afraid, not allow ourselves to not speak up. We have to do it, otherwise, we really are going to be in a full on dictatorship and fascism and all that comes with it. So I think that we need to be very mindful of what they're trying to do, and we have to resist that. We have to be part of that resistance and say, hell no, we're not going to do that. We're not going to buy that.
Hell no, we won't go. We ain't buying into your fascist policies. Dom, before that, they cut off billions of dollars to USAID. Now, ain't nobody trying to support that imperialist foreign policy program, but a judge said, no, you can't do it. And Trump said, who, me? Uh, I'm not sure what you're talking about, but I'm studying the injunction and I'm going to get back to you. And before that, they did the same thing with, according to one news story, I saw trillions of dollars in grants and loans for students and small businesses and others. And in a word, they're saying F you to the federal judiciary. I'm going to ask you the same question. On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being normal, 10 being outright fascism, how close are we?
Yeah, I have to agree with Rosanna. I think 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, because I really just don't want to understate how critical of a moment we're in right now. And frankly, like, I would never, I wouldn't necessarily describe myself as a patriot, but I've been born and raised in this country, in the birthplace of this country, in Philadelphia area, for 28 years of my life, and I was educated in this country. I've had extensive, of course, through the public school system, uh, um, education on the history of this country, and what they're doing, in my opinion, just objectively, is fundamentally un-American. It flies in the face of the values that people are taught in the education system, in regard to this country. And yeah, I just don't, I can't understate how critical of a moment this is. And even with the laying off of the federal workers and USAID, it's all of that, of course, is government waste. But no one talks about, or they're not no one, but they're not talking about the millions of dollars that they give in government contracts and subsidies to the billionaires like Elon Musk. How come that's not waste? You know what I mean? He's already he's the richest man in the world, but of course he needs more government money to create cars that blow up and fall apart. So to me, and that, in my opinion, that's the waste. It's not the federal workers. It's not all the programs like Medicaid, Medicare, and Social Security. That stuff, of course, the stuff that benefits working people, that's the waste. But the millions of dollars that they give in subsidies to people like Elon Musk, that's not waste. So, yeah, I don't want to understate how dangerous of a movement we're in right now.
Speaking of patriotism, we have a study group on the national question in New York. I was reading Lenin last night. Lenin said that there are two nations within every nation, a working class nation and an imperialist nation. You can have national pride in the working class nation without supporting the imperialist nation. And so we have to defend the rights that we won as working and oppressed peoples in this country and say the hell no of the pretenders, like Trump and Hegseth and Musk and all the rest of them. They're calling for the deportation of Musk. At these town halls, they're saying deport Musk, deport Musk. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Scott, what do you think? Um, are we in a constitutional crisis? Um, Two branches of government are occupied by MAGA, um, and they're ignoring a third, um, the federal courts, and the Democrats, to me, seem like they're in almost complete disarray. On a scale of 1 to 10, I got two questions for you. 1 being normal, 10 being outright dictatorship. Where do we stand? And talk about that in the context of a constitutional crisis.
Well, so on the scale of 1 to 10, um, I don't I don't think the baseline level of dictatorship in this country is one. Like if we think about like what happened before Trump's reelection or before the inauguration, I think if we sort of average it out, and um, there was already a lot of people living under uh, incredibly repressive, terroristic, dictatorial measures already in this country. So racially and nationally oppressed people in their encounters with the police, trans people in a lot of states who saw their access to health care and even their um, you know their parental rights with regard to their children challenged. So I would say like the baseline level was like 3 to 6 somewhere, kind of, if we average it out. But now we are, yeah, I agree with Dom and with Rosanna that there's not a number um, that can adequately capture how the danger of the moment that we're in. Um, the Trump regime is claiming total dictatorial power. Elon Musk has made it very clear in his numerous pronouncements that basing himself on this lie that Trump was elected with some huge popular mandate. Therefore, any challenge to anything that Trump or Musk puts their name on is, they call it, undemocratic. So their position is that, well, and Trump has said as well, only the executive branch can interpret the law. So their position is clear. They see themselves as dictators. Are we in a constitutional crisis? Probably, but we were in a political crisis long before this. Right? The constitutional crisis is an expression of the underlying crisis within capitalism, where the rights of capital and the democratic rights of the people are no longer compatible with each other. Capital is demanding more and more control, more and more power to repress. So yes, constitutional crisis rooted in this underlying political crisis.
Scott, you're always moving the goalposts. It's not one, it's 3.5 and all this kind of. I say 9.1.
Okay.
9.1. When they ignore the Supreme Court, which they're likely to do, watch out. We're still able to air this program. I went to a demonstration with my comrades and siblings last Saturday in New York, marching against Doge. If we had a full-on dictatorship, we wouldn't be able to do that. And so there's still space. And the challenge now is to exercise that space in order to push it back. I kind of feel like, where if we had a clock like the nuclear scientists have about the doomsday clock, and they have it like 5 minutes to midnight, you know, and it's kind of been there for the last 50, 60 years, and it goes back and forth, back and forth. We're close, in my opinion, but not there yet. But part of the problem, Rosanna, is the nature of the opposition party and what they're doing, Rosanna, and not doing. How would you evaluate the response of the Democratic Party? Let me give you a recent example. On Sunday, Hakeem Jeffries, the minority leader in the House, got on TV, and he was talking about what happened on Friday with Schumer, which we're going to talk about in a minute, around the government shutdown. And he said that Tuesday, there's a national day to hands off Medicaid. I looked high and low online. I went to Hakeem's website. I went to the Senate's website. I went to the House's website. I went here and there and everywhere. And you couldn't find a word about this hands off Medicaid event on Tuesday. And I'm like, what is going on with these people? Are they in complete disarray, in your opinion, or am I overstating the problem? You can tell me. I can take it if you don't agree.
No, I think you're right. They're in complete disarray. They're like, you know, I don't know what the analogy would be, but they're just like running, like, I guess, kind of chickens without a head, sort of, I guess would be they don't know, most of them. Now, I would say that, Casio and the progressives, they're going on this tour with Bernie Sanders, talking about the reality of what's going on with the takeover by the oligarchs, and taking a lot more action, calling for even the Dems to take on more action against this all of these things. But I think they're just they may be more in shock than the rest of the country, and so they don't know what to do and which way to move because they've been sort of cushy in their own little comfort zone, that they're just sort of going every which way, not really sure who to, I guess, for lack of a better word, who to kiss up to in some ways, in some of the, that's all they've done, right? So it's kind of, that's kind of my image. That's the image that conjures up in my mind.
Well, you're right. You can't talk about the Dems in general because some of them are throwing down. Squad's throwing down. AOC, Bernie, Tim Walton and them are holding town hall meetings in the GOP districts, and they're hot and heavy. People are angry at what's taking place. Even the Republicans say, no, 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 don't hold no town halls because they're bad PR. And they are. But, it seems like they, for the last 2 or 3 months, really since the election, they don't know what to do or where to go or how to get there. Dom, Amilcar Cabral, the great African revolutionary from Guinea-Bissau, once said, tell no lies, claim no easy victories. Remember that? The same thing can be said about defeats. You got to be honest about defeats. And that vote on the GOP budget and the government shutdown was a defeat for democracy by any definition. Who was responsible? And if you could have voted in the House, no, you're not in the House. You're a senator. Senator Senator Dom Shannon. How would you have voted?
Joe, I would have raised so much hell in the halls of Congress that they wouldn't have known what to do with me. That's how bad that was. And it just, I mean, the Democrats have been what seems like in disarray my entire life, or at least maybe not Obama years, but post Obama years, my formative years, they've been in disarray. And I never understand. Well, before I joined the party, I didn't understand why they could never come up with policies or messaging that was equal and opposite to what the GOP was saying. Like, I don't understand why when Trump says we want to cut or get rid of the Department of Education, Democrats aren't like, actually we need to strengthen the Department of Education and create national standards in education, because the reading level and the crisis in education that we are facing in the country. Or when Trump says, we want to cut Medicare and Medicaid, why don't the Democrats say, actually, we need to strengthen Medicare and Medicaid. We need Medicare for all, and we need to build hospitals all around the country and train new healthcare providers, new doctors, new nurses, and give people access to those careers. It's they hardly ever get back to the baseline of what it was before Republicans and the GOP and conservatives make the cut. And then they wonder why, people like me, people my age, are searching for answers outside of the two-party system. It's why I joined this party, because I was searching for answers, and I was constantly disappointed by the Democrats. So it always it's they have some culpability in the way that they've operated from 2016 till now, in terms of stifling the progressives within the Democratic Party, like such as Bernie Sanders and AOC, and supporting their primary challengers, and ensuring that Jamal Bowman and Cori Bush lost. That wasn't, the GOP didn't do that. That was, the Democrats let that happen. Um, so they have some culpability in terms of their messaging and their response to Trump. It's never equal and opposite in what they put out there. It's always either the status quo or capitulating on the cuts that the GOP makes, and it's frankly it's disappointing, and it's going to continue to be disappointing, and they're going to continue to lose unless they make some real changes.
So you would have been like Representative Green from Texas. He'd have had to take your behind out of there.
They wouldn't have known what to do with me.
I heard that. Um, God, same question to you. Who was responsible? And you know, you're the senator from New York, and your senator voted for that thing. Um, and by the way, as I said at the top, we got Lenin up there, but he's a substitute for us. How should the party have handled that? And remember, the Democrats were negotiating with the MAGA Republicans for a month. For a month, you know? And so this idea of a 30-day extension and leverage and all of that was clearly on the table. I mean, they didn't think about it at the 11th hour, at 12:01 Friday morning. Now, Hakeem Jeffries and Pelosi and them said to Schumer, "Yeah, you gave up all your leverage." But Schumer said, "What leverage? Please tell me what leverage? If you had let the government shut down, the law says that the executive would have an unlimited right to determine what stays open and what closes. In other words, that you would have turned over absolute power to MAGA, to the billionaires, to Musk, and to Trump. Um, so who was responsible, and how would you have voted?
So I want to start by saying that, so retreats are sometimes necessary. And like that's something that Lenin insists on over and over again. You got to know when to retreat and how to retreat to stay in, to in an orderly fashion, to be able to fight again, to redirect your energy. And, again, it's something that's occasionally necessary. In this particular instance, it may have been actually necessary to keep the government functioning. The risks of a shutdown may have advanced a shutdown may have advanced the Trump MAGA agenda more than giving the stamp of legitimacy or whatever to these cuts did. The fault, I'm going to go back to what Dom said, and Rosanna, what the fault of the Democratic Party is that for years it has been failing to stand up to the Republican Party, to the extreme right, to this most vicious section of the billionaire class, right? It's been caving time after time. And so when it comes time, perhaps, and I'm not 100% certain on the necessity of that tactical retreat on this spending bill, but when it comes time that you need to make a retreat, it's impossible to trust that that's a real necessity because there's been no leadership from that quarter. There's no reason to trust that they have the interests of the people or the interests of the movement, the resistance in mind. So I'm not sure how I would have voted, and I'm not gonna, join the pile on Chuck Schumer. So I saw somebody in the comments just mentioned Dems failed to stand up for workers because of their donors. And I think that's a really good point because the Democratic Party is, my glasses are all askew. It's really weird.
You look
Anyway,
good, Michael.
the Democratic Party, the leadership of it is caught because on the one hand, it is a party of capital. It's under the control of this more liberal democratic section of the capitalist class, relatively more liberal democratic section. On the other hand, it requires support from workers and oppress people, from women, from African Americans, from Latin people, from all sort of people facing all kinds of oppression. So they do this weird dance of triangulation, trying to give as little as possible to secure the support of the people and the working class, and on the other hand, preserve the power of their section of capital. Um, so, yeah, we can't look to them for leadership. And the folks that are leading, that you mentioned, Bernie, AOC, the Squad, Rashida Tlaib, those people are listening to the movement, the needs of the people, and becoming a voice for that. The people are leading. The movement is leading.
The problem, in my opinion, was the breaking of the Democratic front. That's what Schumer did. You mean to tell me y'all couldn't agree on how to proceed beforehand? And so you're going to do a 180 at the 11th hour? I mean, you may have been right. And because the nature is, what is the nature of the beast? And so at the top of the show, we talked about the deportation of the 300 Venezuelans, the deportation of Brother Khalil, deportation of the doctor, the ignoring of the federal courts, on deportation hearings, on giving back the money, for them just doing whatever the hell they want to do, and they act like they don't care, and they don't. They're dancing around and shucking and jiving. Oh, we're studying the law and so on and so forth. And so we are at the precipice, at the verge of unlimited power. And the only way to stop it, because the courts themselves, y'all, I want y'all to hear what I'm saying, have no enforcement power. Because the only enforcement power comes from the state, the government, right? Isn't that what Lenin said in State and Revolution? And the executive controls the federal marshals. They control the FBI. They control the CIA. They control the military and so on. So the only power that's out there, and I'm going to tell you one thing, it's a hell of a power, is the power of the working class and people. But that power has to be manifest in the streets, in the factories, on the campuses, And that power is growing. The opposition is emerging. But you got to shut the goddamn thing down. That's what has to happen, because we've said it over and over again, that the only thing that this ruling class understands is power, is relationships of power, you know. And when you shut down the flow of goods, and by the way, Brother Fain, I don't think we can wait until 2028 for the engagement of strike action, occupation action, you know, boycott action. We have to begin to manifest it now. And Rosanna, that's why we got to be out there on the 5th. And that's why we got to be out there on May Day. And I know that you all are involved in a May Day demonstration. And tell us a little bit about what's being planned on May Day in LA. And I want to know if I'm invited.
You're always invited, Joe. Well, it's a coalition of trade unions, community organizations, and left organizations. The Communist Party is involved in helping to organize the May Day action. We're still discussing all its forms. We're talking about what we want to accomplish on that day. We know for sure that we want to be, as part of the march, we want to stop at the detention center and show our solidarity to our family, friends, siblings that are in detention, immigration detention. And we also want to have a cultural component of this rally. And we're expecting, we're expecting a huge crowd, maybe up to 50,000 people to come. So it's going to be
Well,
big. So anybody in the LA area or anywhere else, you're welcome. It's a really good show of solidarity.
the next stop on the train, y'all, is on April the 5th. April the 5th, all out to stop Doge and Musk and the billionaire power grab. And then a month later on May Day. Do not underestimate the nature of the beast that we are fighting and what's required in order to defang that beast. And it can be defanged. They've had some setbacks. It's not like that they're able to, it's not been an easy walk down the street, you know. And the more we push back, the greater will be, the greater the resistance, the more space we will create. And that's what we gotta keep our eye on. And so until next week, comrades, we're at 9.1, 9.2, in my opinion. Sorry, Rosa. Sorry, Don. But we still have a space to fight, and
You're
and
right.
and let's try to push it back to 9 by May Day. Until next week, comrades, stay strong, stay safe, stay in the fight. Like this show, share it, and we'll see you next week.